All right, so I'm going to go over here and run the program one more time and show you what's actually happening with the list. So remember we had the list where we were saving all the information. So we're just going to make them visible and we're going to run them from the beginning. And as you see, we are essentially saving everything in the list, right? So we're saving all this information of all of these squares one at a time, right? Let's take a look at it one more time. You see that? One more time. As we move up and down, it's saving everything, right? So every single square that we produce is being saved here. Now, what we want to do, now that we are about to program the removal of the last square, is that we want to make sure we also remove it in the list. Because, if we're removing a square, then the body is no longer there. So it's not supposed to be in the list either. Now, how do we go about doing that? Well, the square that we're going to remove is going to always be the first element on the list. Because when we start, the first element is going to be the last square that we have of the body that is remaining. So if we have to remove the last square, we just have to remove the first item on the list. So we keep adding to the last of the list, and we keep removing from the first in the list. And that's how we maintain the proper list. Okay, so I just wanted to show you guys that. Obviously, we don't want these to be ticked when the program is running. But now that we know that's how the list is operating, let's go over here to the snake head and make sure that we account for that. So we're going to have some sort of a loop right before we show the body. And what we're going to do is that we're going to check for the length of the snake and see if we need to remove anything. And it's very important that we remove first before we produce a new square. All right, because let's say the length of the snakes is supposed to be 4. If we produce first and then remove, we're gonna first make the snake longer and then make it back to 4. That's all we want, right? We want to make sure that the snake moves. It looks like it's going forward. So essentially, you create the illusion of movement by removing from the last one, adding one over here as the head moves. So we're going to make sure that we write the removal before we write the addition of a new square. All right, so we're going to have a repeat until over here. And we're going to say right here after the move would be good. So let's just take that out there, put this in there, and then put this afterwards. Very good. And we're going to say repeat until, and we're going to check for 2 things, right? So we're going to have an or. So repeat until, and let me just bring this down a little bit so it's a little bit easier to work. Repeat until either the length of the list is smaller than the length of the snake, so the length of snake body X is less than the length of the snake, or it's equal to the length of the snake. All right, so what we're doing essentially is that we're saying repeat this as long as the list is less than or equal to what the length is supposed to be. So if the length is supposed to be 4, but we only have 3 elements in the list, we need to keep this going. And what we do in here is that we first say, okay, we need to make sure we broadcast delete body and then wait, because there we go, broadcast. And make sure you select this one. Make sure broadcast and wait rather than just broadcast. And the reason for that is because we want to make sure that we first remove the square, and we want to make sure that operation is fully done. Then we go ahead and produce a new square. So we broadcast a new message, and it's going to be called delete body. All right, so we produced the broadcast delete body. And then once that's done and the action has been produced on screen, we're just going to remove the first element of the list as we discussed. So we just go over here and we say delete number 1 of snake body X and delete number 1 of snake body Y. All right, now we need to obviously account for delete body. So how do we go about deleting the last element of the body? We go over to hide body, which is the stamp that we're going to use to remove any of the body elements by just essentially turning it white. And what we say is that we say anytime I receive that broadcast, which was called delete body, we're going to go to the same x and y. So we're going to go to the x and y of the first element of the list. Remember, we're doing this before because we had that the wait command over here, right? So we're doing this before we delete them, right? So we first go to that same element in the list, and then we delete that element from the list. Okay, very important. That's, again, another reason why it's important to have that wait in there. So we go to the x and y, which is the element in the lists x and y. So item 1 of snake body x and item 1 of snake body y. And we're going to stamp this white square on there, essentially removing that. And of course, we also need to make sure that when you start the program, there is none of these squares around. So when the flag is clicked, just make sure that you have erased it all as well. Always remember to have the defaults included as well. All right, so that's all we need for the hide body. So what this will do is that anytime the loop is running and our condition is met, we are going to delete the last one of the square, and we're going to essentially delete one of snake body y and one of snake body x, essentially making sure the list remains the amount it needs to remain at. All right, now let's go ahead and run this and see how it looks. So we first start with the 3s, and as you can see the path. Obviously, we don't want these borders to be shown, but it's good to see them for now because it helps you kind of track this, right? And see what's actually happening in this. What we're doing is exactly what is being shown, is that we have this moving forward, and we're removing anything from beforehand. And I'm going to show you with the lists as well. So let's make sure the lists are showing. This is how it works. You see how we keep removing the first one and we keep adding to the later parts of it. All right, so hopefully this is a good visual to show you exactly what's going on with the program. And that's exactly what we want. Okay, so now in the next videos, we're going to get rid of these traces, and we're going to add other functionality to the game, like having the food spawn and making sure that anytime we hit the border, we lose and stuff like that. So follow me in the next videos where we cover all of that stuff.